Oriini Kaipara, tēnā koe. Tēnā koe I whaiwahi mai koe kia mātou. I whaiwahi atu mātou kia koe. You are the Tāmaki Makaurau candidate for Te Pāti Māori, after the passing, of course, of Takutai Tarsh Kemp. What was her legacy, and how will you seek to uphold that legacy?
I wasn't really fortunate, as many others were, to meet her, you know, to cross paths with her. Her legacy really was short-lived. It was too short. So in terms of how I feel now, you know, following in her footsteps and having this privilege of being the MP or the candidate for Te Pāti Māori is an honour. Her legacy really, he wahine hu Māori e ne, he rangi Māori e. Kei roto iau, tērā manatunga, tērā āhua o te hu Māori e. What is hu Māori e in te reo Pākehā? Just a calm presence, the cool, calm, collected auntie in amongst the furore of Te Pāti Māori, which is amazing. You know, the energy in terms of Rawiri, Tākuta, Debbie, Meno and Hana, you know, it's fire, it's electric, and I think the beauty of takutai that she brought to Te Pāti Māori, and that what I respect her wholeheartedly for, was being calm. She reminded me a lot of my kuia. My kuia was a real compassionate kuia. I pakeke ia I roto I te hāhi perehe pitiri ana, ne, no reira, tino kore au e I rongo I tētahi kupu kanga, I tētahi kupu kino, I puta I te waho taku kuia. Engari o nā tuakana, ne, te whānau katoa he pērā mātou, ne, he riri, he amo wheke, he kaika ki te mahi e tahi mahi taku kuia I tino tau. And so I love the beauty of the dynamics between Te Pāti Māori, what takutai brought to Te Pāti Māori, and I hope to follow in that. But also, I am Tūhoe. I am Ngāti Awa, I am a raukura, I am te aho mātua, I am a mum, I am a nana now, I am a kuia, so I bring my own legacy with me, and I hope that Tarsh will be proud of the mahi that we do from here on.
You call Tāmaki Makaurau, quote, a place where mana whenua and urban Māori rise together, where our struggles are real, but so is our strength. I see you, I hear you, I am you, we are the movement. What does that exactly mean?
I've lived here all my life. I was bred in Tāmaki Makaurau. I've only ever lived in one other place apart from Tāmaki Makaurau, from West Auckland, and that has been Rotorua. For personal reasons, but it's always been Tāmaki, it's always been the West for me. Why have I said those words? What do they mean? Tāmaki Makaurau, as we know, is probably the most diverse of all of ngā tūru Māori, all the Māori electorates, and so there's different pockets of te ao Māori that live and call Tāmaki Makaurau home. It's not just the mana whenua. We know there's a massive amount of taurahere. The majority of your people, Julian, Ngāpuhi, live here in Tāmaki Makaurau. There's a fraction over in South Auckland, there's West Side, there's East Side, but there's never an us that kotahitanga, and I'm not saying we all must be one every time, no, but there's a real blueprint here. There's an opportunity to really canvass what is race relations or urban equity when we look at the biggest kind of grouping of te ao Māori within Aotearoa, and how can we facilitate. I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but there is something within Tāmaki Makaurau that can really impact the way we see each other. We live together across Aotearoa in terms of our race relations. Ne? Mana motuhake exists everywhere. You have Ngāti Whātua here in Te Kawera Wāmaki. You know, I think it's really, really disturbing, to say, want for a better word, that our mana whenua still have to fight, have to litigate, just to have a say over protecting places like Te Wānui-a-Tiriwa, the Waitakere Ranges. You know, just recently the government's interfering in processes that have always been established, and, you know, the promises that have been made to Māori over generations, and we're still trying to hold the government and councils to account, to whakatina nei te kupu. The fact that Kawera Wāmaki had to go out and say, hey, this is something that was promised to us, they're only trying to deliver it. Stay out. that's not good enough. You know, we have to constantly fight to have what little has been promised to us, and we're how many generations past the fact.
Do you see that as your role? To
I see
facilitate
that-
that, to bring that together, to be the unifier? And if so, how do you do that? Because it's not easy.
I don't do that alone, and I do. To answer your question, yeah, I do. I have a responsibility. I feel in my puku as a responsibility being a raukura from this marae, because that is the example and that is the ethos that I'm really who I am as community, e whānau, ko te whanaungatanga, nothing happens without the support of your whānau and the people behind you. So when I talk about kotahitanga, yes, there's something within the unification of te ao Māori within Tāmaki Makaurau where we can function not just when it comes to kapahaka, but kaupapa hui ora. You know, we're only coming together for hui mate, for tangihanga. How can we change that? Back in the 80s, you know, when I was a kid, this marae used to pump a lot of kaupapa, and it wasn't for the media, it wasn't for praise, it wasn't to get government attention, it was just to be Māori, to come back, because it was that collective, you know. Tūhoe would come here. I'm from Tūhoe, you know, mātātua marae. We would always just, it was like a moving part, not a party, but a movement of te ao, o ngā tipuna, because I feel that they saw it back then in the 80s, well before I was born. You know, ki te kore tātou e nohotahi, hui tātou ka tū, wehe wehe ka hinga. And I feel like, you know, there's a growing, you can see by the disconnection, or, you know, te wehe wehe noho, wehe wehe, tonga ki te tonga, uru ki te uru, raki pai ki te raki pai, te rāwhiti ki te rāwhiti, kai te wehe wehe rawa. And there's problems like mental health, you know, like loneliness, era mea katoa, houselessness, all of that. When we come together, we look after each other.
So those are big issues.
Yeah.
What is the first policy plank, if you were to be the MP for Tāmaki Makaurau, what's the first private members bill that Oriini Kaipara puts to the House for a vote? What's the main policy platform that you're going to talk to espouse as MP for Tāmaki Makaurau on behalf of the people of Tāmaki Makaurau?
Te Pāti Māori has some very strong policies already in place, and one that I'm really looking at and really kind of trying to get my head around. I mean, I only just put my head up, my hand up the other day, Julian, so it's just going to give me a little bit of time to get around everything. But mana motuhake, I am te reo. I don't want to just, you know, I'm very conscious that there is a very, very, very annoying statistic, annoying to me. 2% of our country can converse in te reo Māori. That is not good enough. It is really, really just heartbreaking for a lot of us that have grown in it, that are trying our best to, you know, whakapakeke i a tātou tamariki, kia kōrerotia te reo Māori, but 2% of the entire population, what is that about? 22% of our people, te ao Māori, te iwi Māori, e mōhio ana ki tō rātou arero tīpuna. Kei reira te wehenga, ne, te motunga o te here ki te ao, o ngā tīpuna ki te ao, o ngā tipuna e whai mai nei, and koe nau e kine e ki ana ko te community. Kei reira katoa ne, tūhonotia ngā iwi, kia rongo rātau i te reka o tēnei mea o te noho Māori.
And I completely understand why that would be a key policy plank for you. Why that policy then, when we're dealing with a coalition government that we're dealing with at the moment? You have seen Māori to respond to calls for unification. Kingi Tūhoe in his time, and now Oriini Ngawai Kaipara, the way in which this coalition government is acting, and the attacks that people talk about when they talk about Māori policy. Why that policy then, as opposed to others, when we're dealing with the coalition government that many Māori are talking about now?
Well, this coalition government is giving us no other choice but to fight back the way Te Pāti Māori is fighting back, and others within the House have been fighting for, well, actually to ensure that what rights Māori have had and do have remain, and what has been agreed upon in the past, you know, doesn't get dismantled or destroyed, or, you know, the continued erosion of te tiriti o waitangi. So yeah, we have to fight back.
I guess I'm asking about the policy for te reo, given that people on Tāmaki Makaurau are doing it tough now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Homelessness, health, education, everything. So why that policy over others?
Yeah.
When things are so
What I
tough?
hear also is, and I'm not being defensive when I say, well, why te reo? It's almost like saying there's no value in te reo. It's almost saying you can't earn a living with te reo. It's almost saying like, just screw te reo, throw it aside. Money is more important. No, not at all. not at all. I am an example of te reo has an immense amount of value, but also it is celebrated worldwide. Yes, you can make a career, a living out of te reo, but that is not the purpose. What te reo does is ensure that you have the safety of a whare like this. You can sit in it confidently as Māori and connect to it and talk to it and bring it to life and say, this is who I am. So I get it. Not everyone is for te reo, but this is who I am, and I will not, push it aside. What I will do is try and identify how I can create the equity so that people do see the value in te reo and say, I want te reo first.
You were a broadcaster for 20 years. You were sitting in this seat talking to people like you now for 20 years. You're on the other side of the microphone now. Why now? And why you?
Yeah. The two biggest questions that have been haunting me for the last 2 weeks, I'll be real, Jules, but to be honest, I'm over 40. There's a very confronting statistic that affects all of us Māori. We die 7 years younger than everybody else. So when I think about my whakapapa, we lost our mum too soon, and that was during COVID, and that was really, really hard. And we've lost too many. I lost a sister a month before my mum passed away, very, very shocking way. And on my own whānau, we're losing at this marae far too many people, far too soon, far before their time. And that's actually happening all across te iwi Māori. Our rangatira are leaving. And I'm not saying I'm a rangatira, but who's filling in the gaps? Who's stepping up? I see some who really want to. And I'm not saying I am the answer. I'm saying, well, not everyone is putting up their hand. And I actually am getting tired of sitting on the sidelines and being impartial, being objective, having to bite my tongue when I see a huge hikoi walking past me and I cannot actively voice my truth. That, it did hurt when Tūhoe, the raids in Tūhoe, but I was a reporter that whole time. That impacted all my family. But I'm a journalist and I have to do my job, dutifully. And that should show how really reflect on who I am as a person, as a woman, as I take my mahi very seriously. As a journalist, I took it very seriously. And that's what I'm bringing into politics. There's no difference, really, I don't see between that seat and this seat. Difference is you're asking the questions and I'm answering them. I hope that they're making sense, really.
I think Moana Jackson said that if you're born Māori, you are political by nature. But when had you made the decision in your mind that politics was going to be your life, and the decision that it was going to be with the Pāti Māori? Has that always been there in you, that was something, a calling you wanted to do, and the Pāti Māori was the party for you?
That's a good question. My best mates tell me that, when we were kids, I used to always say I wanted to be the Prime Minister. I don't remember that. I don't remember that conversation. But what I do remember is always being on debates. In our debates, I roto I ngā tautohe katoa, I mean in whakaata Māori, we had tautohe, and I never ever saw that as a stepping stone towards, politics, towards becoming a politician. Never in my mind did it ever cross my whakaro that one day I will be a politician. My voice is really my power. Ko taku reo, kaua ko te reo Māori noi ho engari ko ku whakaro, ne? E rā mea katoa, ko taku reo, taku tino. Hānga ngā mahi e mahi nei au I te mutunga iho, ko taku reo, te kaikawe, I o ku whakaro, ngā whakaro o taku iwi. So whether it's in front of the lens or behind the lens, whether it's at a board table, at the Olympics, or in Parliament, my voice is the consistency across everything, eh? I don't change really, I evolve, I've grown up a lot, and here's the thing, I'm a queer now, my moko is 9 months old, so, it might pain my kids to hear this, but being a queer, life really does, being a grandparent, your life really does change. So I go back to why I said 40, I'm 40 now, by 60, I can see if we don't start now, koene tāku I tēnei ata. Ki te kore tātou e tū, e mahi tētahi mahi nai anei, ka pēhea te ao o taku mokopuna. Ne? Kei te whakaarua ki era tatauranga e ki ana he toko iti noi ho e pupuri ana I te Māori o te reo Māori e ki ana tā he mihenare ko te reo te Māori o te mana Māori. How true is that if those statistics are telling us that not every single Māori, and that's what I want to not promise, but what I want to try and achieve as part of my legacy is free reo for all Māori. And it's not just reo, it's tikanga and it's connection, bringing home.
A couple of things you just mentioned there. One, whānau, and you mentioned the henare name, and I just want to close on those 2 points, okay? First of all, whānau, actually, we'll start with the henare name.
Okay.
Because the previous Labour Party candidate for this seat is a henare. His name is Pēni Henare. He was the MP for Tāmaki Makaurau. He could be the candidate for the Labour Party in this by-election. Why would the people of Tāmaki Makaurau vote for you over Pēni Henare?
Well, they've had Pēni Henare in the past. They haven't had Oriini Kaipara. Hey, they've had the lady on the TV, but they haven't experienced the lady who is willing to put everything on the line, everything, and bring her whānau, her marae, her people, and including te ao haka forward to fight for what is right for every Māori. Not just one patch in Tāmaki Makaurau, not just one type of Māori. Tino korene, te katoa. And it's not just the Māori who can speak Māori or who can wield a taiaha. Tino korene, it's every single one of us. So why should Tāmaki Makaurau vote for me? Well, that's up to Tāmaki Makaurau. I want to earn it. I don't want to take it. I'm not a politician. I'm not a career politician. I am political. My life is absolutely political. It is sewn into every inch of this whare, my legacy, as well as those of Papa Pita. I follow in his footsteps. Te hira painga. You know, the bro put his hand up a few years ago, so I'm not the first raukura to try this out. I give him credit for that. But at this point, I'm hoping to be the very first raukura for all te aho matua, which is right across the motu, and the new, ikio, ko eke te wā.
And Hana Rāwhiti might be Clark.
And
as well.
Hana Rāwhiti might be Clark. I'm going to be her auntie in there.
One final question.
Yeah.
You talked about family. Parliament is not a kind place.
Yeah, no.
The Māori Party has talked about, Te Pāti Māori has talked about the treatment Te Pāti Māori has received in terms of the way, the response to the haka, tebi, rawiri, Hana Rāwhiti. It's also not a kind place, and New Zealand is actually not a kind place to wahine Māori who put their hand up for political representation. And it's not a kind place also in terms of the impacts on whānau. How prepared are you to deal with that world that is not a kind place at the moment?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and one I have been pondering for quite some time. Is this really the right thing for me to do? And it's not about me, it's not the Orencho, it's my kids. What is the impact this is going to have on my children first, my parents, my siblings, and then it expands, and then it comes here. How is this going to impact the kura? Hey, te pōhiri mai o te aotoranga pūkirunga I tēnei marae. This is effectively what they're allowing and supporting me. So I think about the rest, and I think about that, and actually that's where I draw strength from. Nā rātou a hau I whakatū, I kōpau kia tū hei Māngai mo tēnei marae katoa. Ko ai au ki te whakakāhore I te whakapono o taku tira, o taku kēnge, ne? O taku whānau katoa. Yes, kei te āmaimai. Kei te āmaimai kau taku whānau. I te mea mohi o pai ana mātou I haratira I te tai ao pai, ne, wairua pai. But you know what? There are beautiful wairua places where wairua can be restored. This is one, and I'm really fortunate that I have a strong team behind me. I have strong siblings. I do not take for granted the relationships that I have fostered over the years, but really it comes down to whakapono, te whakapono ki taku ao Māori, and yeah, I got to get out and kore and all of that. I got to do the basics, you know, which is running up hills. Jules, you and I, we got a mountain to climb together. But no, it really is. It's I don't go in there naive or with rose-coloured glasses that this is going to be a breeze. Absolutely not. I'm looking forward to this next chapter in my life, Julian, and seeing who I become in this space. We're seeing who I've become on TV as an MC, you know, as a public speaker, but this is definitely a different realm, but it's no different to the journey, to the life journey that I have already been privy to, which is kura kaupapa Māori, kohanga reo, aho matua, whare kura, tai hoa e tū mai te whare wānanga tuatahi mō te aho matua kiko nei.
Oriini Kaipara, tēnā koe. Thank you very much for your time.
Tēnā koe.